Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today's September 13th, 2023, and we're doing business and social stories for your midweek, for your hump day, so to speak. I wonder if we'll get demonetized because I said hump in the first 15 seconds.
What about, there was that song, popular song,
Oh, yeah.
Lady Lumps.
Oh,
I'm sure you can go watch that right now with all the monetization in the world.
Fergie.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Fergalicious, I think was the name of the song.
And I'm sure that that's on YouTube, along with a lot of other really extremely off-color things. But God forbid if you have content that wants you to think about things.
Well, you got to have that corporate backing. That money's got to go to the right place, not to Model M keyboards. Well, it's all about the foundries these days. Who can make the chips? You got to have, you got to buy your time at the foundries because everybody's scrambling for that space. And Intel is putting a long-term deal on the board here.
Intel and Tower ink a major foundry deal, $300 million investment after Intel cancels its $5.4 billion Tower acquisition. Now, the Intel and Tower both wanted the acquisition to go through, but there were regulatory hurdles, and China also was not super enthused about the Tower acquisition. So instead, Tower and Intel are basically still going to get in bed together.
And the
It's more of
deal,
a friends with benefits sort of situation than a marriage.
the deal goes until 2040. The long game. Long-term friends with benefits. We've also seen a variety of new CPU vulnerabilities lately, and they were like, yeah, we got the fix coming, but it might be quite a performance hit. Now, this is the software version of the fix, not the official microcode version, but we have some numbers if you want to fix it with software.
AMD Zenbleed vulnerability fix tested. Some apps dropped by 15%, but gaming is basically unaffected.
Way better than they predicted.
Yeah, this is generally good news for AMD because the similar security issues that have happened on the Intel platform have been much more severe. And a better fix is coming. So we know that the impact, the workload impact, is going to be no worse than 15% because when this is fixed in microcode, it's probably not going to be as severe of an impact.
Definitely worse in productivity software, but unless you're doing some really intensive stuff with your productivity software, you probably won't notice that. I'm sure there's somebody out there who's doing like some sort of, video transcoding or encrypting or something like that. And they're like, oh, it's terrible.
And we're going to get to the point where people are just buying those small form factor, low power PCs. And it's like, I'm going to do all my internet swill on this disposable computer and all my real work over here.
Well, Apple is also looking for a new partner in the chip making game. And since Intel got Tower, they go another direction.
Apple inks a new long-term deal with ARM for chip technology, according to this filing.
Oh, I wonder if I confuse these and maybe this is the 2041. Oh, you know what? This is the 2041.
Oops.
Oh, yeah.
You've misinformationed our
wow.
audience.
Long-term relationship. It also tells you a lot about what Apple thinks about RISC-V, which I think is I think RISC-V has got more legs than Apple would seem to think that it does.
Didn't it mention that they also are doing RISC-V with this?
They are, yeah. But I think Apple sees it as more for like appliances and embedded systems, but not highest end stuff. ARM is trying to get itself ready for an IPO, and so it's lost its mind.
And if there is any better indicator of economic downturn, I can't think of one because Apple is not known for low cost devices. They kind of look at the low cost people as like, yeah, maybe you should be with Google because we don't really want you stinking up the place around here.
Riff-raff.
But maybe not forever.
Apple will launch low-cost MacBook series next year to rival Chromebooks.
What does low cost mean for Apple?
We don't know.
Yeah.
They have not given us those details. They did say that it's going to look similar, but be visually different because obviously you have to have the two different, classes. And it's going to be made with junk parts, basically. So maybe all those butterfly keyboards they got in a warehouse somewhere.
Old school M1. Look, you get underclocked M1 chips. This is going to be, you'll like it.
From a physical design standpoint, that'll be interesting to see how they change it. Will they make it like heavier and more boxy instead of so
Probably.
sleek?
How they did it with, they had Macs for education. And when they were starting to move into like the sleeker metal cases, those were some of the last ones that still had a plastic case.
They said these would be metal though, but not the same metal.
Yeah.
So they have to be distinct.
It shows fingerprints. It's like all nasty.
Oh, like the Dell had the real thin magnesium laptops for a while. It's like, oh, this looks like a nice, metal Dell business class laptop. And then you open it up and it's like, this is made of aluminum foil.
It crackles every time you put your wrists on it.
The screen, like you open the screen and from like one corner and the other corner is just like, oh, I can open it diagonally. Oh.
Don't do that, poor. And Samsung is working hard on DDR5.
Samsung unveils industry's first 32 gigabit DDR5 memory die, 1 terabyte registered ECC DIMMs or inbound.
The 1DIMM era.
Yeah, some people will try to do that. That's not a good idea.
So you're going to do 2 terabytes, huh?
We're gonna have 12 and 16 memory channels. Gonna have to go to 12 and 16 terabytes.
Well, 3D TV and monitors really never caught on. And some people just will not give up on it. They think that 3D is required for our enjoyment. I just don't see it.
Lenovo's new 27-inch 4K monitor offers glasses-free 3D.
I gotta see because you don't have this monitor. That's why you don't see it.
Obviously.
I gotta see this in person. I don't know if I believe it.
So this is obviously just a little mock-up here. It doesn't actually look like that. How does it accomplish this? Well, if you watched yesterday's show in the security section, it's not going to sound good to you because always on camera. Probably more than one, right? Because it has to have a camera on each of your eyes so that it can decide how to show each eye a different thing in order to create the 3D.
Did anybody ever figure out how to do the optics where, if the monitor were this big and this distance from your eyes, that you're looking through the box and it looks like the monitor's up here, but it's like this. And so you're focusing far away.
Well, I don't know if anybody's accomplished that, but I know who didn't.
Magic Leap 1 AR headsets will cease to function after 2024 because this is a preview of our dystopian future. It's like your smart fridge will cease to function after 2026 because we don't want to support the old Android version anymore. And it definitely needs Android in order to be a fridge.
So this was 2018. So that's not too, in terms of life cycle of electronics, I've got things I bought in 2018.
They were still selling these less than a year ago.
$2,300.
Whew.
And it's just going to stop working. Now, they did ask them, they're like, well, it'll still continue to function, right? And one of the engineers, maybe off the record, was like, every 6 months it calls home. And if it fails that, it bricks itself.
What a great design.
You did that on purpose?
Oh, they absolutely did that on purpose.
Absolutely. And poor Toyota, this is an embarrassing thing. Sometimes you'll get an error and you're like, I cannot figure out what is going wrong. Why am I having all these errors? And you didn't check the most obvious thing. Their situation was a little more complicated than that, but ultimately...
Toyota says that filled disk storage halted Japan-based factories. Oops. They literally just filled up their storage.
The command line's not even working. What's going on here? So they went down for maintenance, and they calculated that the temporary storage would not fill up before the maintenance was complete. The maintenance took longer than expected, which cost them an insane amount of money. And poor Florida got pounded pretty hard by the hurricane. Looks like there's another one cooking.
Have you seen it? It's huge. It's really incredible.
Category 5.
Yeah. It rapidly intensified from a category 1, or I think it was maybe category 2 to a 5 overnight, like 8 hours.
What a champion
really cool.
hurricane.
It's probably going to go up the coast and not make landfall, but it's still cool.
Well, if you are in the path of it and you have an electric vehicle, you might want to take some precautions.
Was Hurricane Idalia caused flooding, and some electric vehicles exposed to the saltwater from that have caught fire.
Oh, there's some video there.
One of them caught fire while being towed.
Ooh.
So it was on the road moving when it burst into flames.
Imagine that sight, like you've just gone through a really horrible apocalyptic event, and then you just see that go by you on the highway.
Or you're behind it and you're like, finally, I can get out of this hell. I'm going to go to another state and wait this out.
Yeah.
And then you have to stop because there's a flaming car in
front of you.
So they say that saltwater in particular is very bad, and it can be 12 to 48 hours after the exposure to saltwater when the actual fire occurs. So you're not out of the woods. Very terrifying. And if we ever decide that those EVs were actually a bad idea, at least we can do some cool stuff with those batteries.
Nissan begins repurposing Leaf car batteries as portable power stations. So the battery loses its ability to hold a charge with as much power density as it once did, but it still can, they're charging or they're discharging into a kettle, which is probably not the best idea. If you've got a weak sauce battery, one great way to make it self-immolate is to ask it to dump its load as quick as possible.
But I need hot water for my tea now.
Yeah. Not fabulous.
Well, Nintendo dumped their load at the latest Gamescom. They showed off the secret new Switch.
Nintendo demoed Switch 2 to developers at Gamescom ahead of a widely expected launch next year. Okay.
We don't get to see it.
Yeah, it's literally just the Nintendo logo.
And apparently all they had was a tech demo of an upscaled of the Zelda game.
It's still not going to be better than the
Steam one.
Steam Deck.
Yeah.
Which is sad. And also, some of these Nintendo games with like the AI upscaling and texture packs, and it's like, my goodness, they look nice.
Not always a lot under the hood, though.
No, I really like Metroid Prime Remastered on not Nintendo's native platform.
See, I played it before it was remastered. It was fine.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it the first time too, which is probably why I'm enjoying it so much the second time.
I don't need to play it again. And the Google Reaper. It's been a while. And so he's been sharpening that scythe here for all these times and ready to make another cut.
Google is killing Play Movies and TV and will only have 3 stores left.
Oh, tragic.
I read this story 2 or 3 times because it seems to be saying that your purchases will still be on a tab that is confusingly named, but your purchases would still be there. I have a feeling your purchases will disappear at some point in the not too distant future.
There's no way they're going to maintain that server cost.
Right, yeah. It gone to the days of like, just give me a file. It would be like the book publishers in 1920 saying, well, you have an option to not actually give them a book. We're going to print it out of paper that disintegrates after a year. And the book publishers would say, yes, that's what we're doing.
I was, in order to install Starfield, I was doing a Winterstat purge, and I found my Google Play music dump of the MP3s that I uploaded to them that I got back. What a fun little time capsule that was. That's never going to happen again. And we got some design stories. Unfortunately, they're not together because one was added super late. But Google Chrome, now I got to say, whoever at the Chrome development team decided to move the downloads from that stupid pop-up bar at the bottom and put them up at the top like every other browser does it, they should just become the CEO of Alphabet. It's like, no one else can make the same decision you can, so you're just in charge. Let's hope they continue with that pragmatism.
Chrome is about to look a bit different. All right.
It's more rounded and bubbly. I do like that there's different themes now. So you can have a dark mode, or you can even do like different colors. There's some previews of that in this article.
I would like Google Chrome to go back to not annoying me about logging into the damn browser constantly.
Yeah.
Since I got the OLED monitor, I've been running Google in the experimental content dark mode. It's terrible. I mean, it does do dark mode kind of, but when it decides to interpolate those colors and weird decisions, the Level 1 logo, it does not care for. And we saw Netflix do it, and it seems like from now on, YouTube's business model is just copy Netflix.
YouTube's latest experiment is playing games.
I had a friend send me their Wordle clone this week. It was garbage.
Who's YouTube's?
Yeah.
Do we have the memo in here? Was that where I read it? I don't remember if it was the news links reading, where there was an internal memo leaked where the people inside YouTube were freaking out about shorts eating their revenue. They're just like, this is suicidal. We're doing bad things, and we're cannibalizing all of our revenue.
I don't remember seeing that.
Considering we're on YouTube, that makes me a little nervous. Store.level1text.com.
And we tried some shorts, and you
guys did not like
soundly
it.
rejected that.
I think we still technically have a TikTok that one of our editors runs, but we don't post to it too often.
Yeah.
Well, here's a little bit of good news, but it's not really good news. It's just something that was so stupidly awful that they overestimated people's tolerance for it. The tolerance was near zero.
BMW plans to drop the charge for the monthly fee for heated seats.
They wanted $18 a month for that.
It turns out the customers weren't that stupid.
Well, the guy they interviewed in this was like, customers just really weren't, they didn't uptake it. They didn't think it was a value add.
Well, he said they felt like they were paying twice for something, which of course they weren't, but they were.
Yeah.
How can you make that argument? You put it in the car. You're not going to do that for free. There's no chance. So now they did not back away from the subscription thing, though. They're like, no, we're just going to go to more software-based subscription models. So now, and remember that they also did the Apple car thing subscription.
Yeah.
They were the first to pioneer that horror.
They want to make it less obvious. So if you have financed by BMW, the charge for that will be just built into your monthly payment.
Oh, like everything else. Rust proofing and Apple CarPlay.
Ugh.
I love this one because I've lost all confidence. I don't care about modern movies. I can't watch them. They're so bad. And I know some of that's just like, old man screaming at clouds, maybe. But I really do feel like we've dropped quality. And yet all the ones that make me the most angry get celebrated. And it's like, really? Are people really buying this? No.
The decomposition of Rotten Tomatoes, the most overrated metric in movies, is erratic, reductive, and easily hacked, and yet it has Hollywood in its grasp. This article reads like somebody just writing a really angry letter to the editor.
It probably is.
So Vulture is a PR company, and what they do, so they point out this movie Ophelia. You guys ever hear that one? I never heard of that one. It did terribly with reviews, but it was kind of like a, girl power, all female cast, and they're like, no, you're not allowed to not like this. So what they do is they go and they get lesser known movie critics who are still counted toward the average score, and they give them $50
To give a
That's
good review.
all it costs to defraud Rotten Tomatoes. $50. And they also point out, they got some emails here where they're like, well, if you don't like it, maybe you post that review on a blog outside of the thing that Rotten Tomatoes looks at. Mm-hmm. And they were able to confirm that some of these people who regularly review these Vulture movies, or not Vulture, what was the name of the thing?
Rotten Tomatoes.
Bunker 15.
Oh.
That's the marketing company. People who do the Bunker 15 thing, they would post reviews to their personal blogs, which didn't go into the Rotten Tomatoes score.
Well, we had a similar story to this last year with IMDb. They turned off reviews entirely for Rings of Power for a few episodes because people were like, I don't like this. And they didn't want it to tank their score.
It's all manipulated.
It really is. Have you noticed? So I thought this was interesting. I saw there was a review thread for Wheel of Time. The new season just came out. And someone pointed out in one of the comments, they're like, Control F for step up. And there were like hundreds of comments with this is a step up from last season. And it's like, are they even trying to hide it anymore?
They sent out some talking points
Yeah.
in the press kit.
It was very, very strange. I mean, some of it's probably just one person reads it and then types it out in the same way. But like when you have hundreds like that, it's very weird.
Well, if you're only making $50 a review, you got to crank them out. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the volume. Plus also ChatGPT, probably.
Yeah, I wondered that as well.
It's usually more valuable to read the comments on and around Rotten Tomatoes anyway. Because sometimes I've watched a movie that was rotten just because the comments around it were interesting and it was a perfectly reasonable movie. But I get why it was rotten. Or slightly fresh.
Well, you know what's rotten is the state of governments licensing software and not knowing what in the world they are doing and getting into these big contracts that they can't comprehend. And it's really going to cost you if you're someone who lives in this area.
Largest local government body in Europe goes under amid Oracle disaster. Authority effectively bankrupt as ERP car crash adds to equal pay liability.
So they expected to pay £20 million. Actual bill from Oracle, £125 million.
This is not an atypical thing. It's just usually the Oracle lawyers really are on top of making sure no one talks about it.
They don't have that money. They also got caught up in an equal pay scandal. So they're going to have to back pay some people that they were paying less for the wrong reasons. And so when you go from 20 to 125, that's a lot to make up. They're going to be writing some speeding tickets in that town, let me tell you. And Sam Altman continues to be controversial. He wants to scan your eyes. He wants AI to control the world. And he also wants to decide where you work.
Sam Altman-backed Mentra aims to match neurodivergent job seekers with their ideal jobs.
Before you guys ask, when you go to read this article, yes, this is an ad for Mentra. It was very clearly an ad. It was not disclosed as such, but it reads like one.
Definitely reads like
Of course, it's Sam Altman. So how are they going to do it? Artificial intelligence. Now, we know that artificial intelligence is notorious for underrepresenting people who aren't average. So
How are they going to fix that with this? The article doesn't really go into that here, just that we're really working hard to find better job placement for people who are neurodivergent.
I feel like another way of saying this is we want to take advantage of people who aren't good at getting jobs through the interview process. We want to be like your manager.
Is there any science fiction story about a malevolent, non-human intelligence AI artifact that's discovered, and it successfully co-opts a well-meaning human into doing something really terrible, like destroying all life in the galaxy because it was a, super intelligent.
There's a lot of stories about the FBI doing that. But they're not science fiction.
That's basically the Ted Kaczynski story, but on a galactic scale.
And if you were an air traveler in the UK recently, you probably had a really bad time. And you're going to be upset when you find out why.
UK air traffic meltdown, a 1 in 15 million event. Why did the air traffic control system crash? Because somebody's flight plan involved going through 2 different markers that had the same name.
Which just made this system, because, like the safeguards built into the system are, if you can't figure it out, just stop. Because if you don't, fireballs of people, we can't have that. And so it was just like, nope, I ain't touching it. I'm done. And that happened for a while until they figured it out. I think it came out of France, right?
Yeah, what was weird about this story to me is I feel like this should probably be a pretty big story, but I didn't hear anything about it until I was reading the news this week.
This was part of the reason why I was trapped in Canada, is because there were supposed to be flights coming over from the UK, and they didn't.
They didn't, and everyone was like, whoa, someone's supposed to be here. They're not on the runway.
Yeah, Air Canada's approach to when things go wrong is just, we'll worry about that later. It's like, well, okay, guess I'm renting a car.
Hey, that adds to the GDP, right? More tourist dollars.
You just care about not the environment, but the money, the economy.
And Windows, this goes to show you how broken the basic services in Windows are. The things that should just run on, like the most simple assembly level have been bloated to the point of unusability.
Windows File Explorer gets nostalgic speed boost thanks to one weird bug. If you are loading Windows Explorer, you can just hit F11 to go full screen and then F11 again to go out of full screen, and then suddenly Windows Explorer is more responsive. I'm sure in the post-mortem it'll make sense, but how does it fail so badly?
They're going to be like, oh, well, it's waiting for the API from the start menu to see if there's any new ads we want to show you. Full screen breaks that.
Meanwhile, I'm really, really hoping that some new Linux stuff that's happening, we end up with a GUI that doesn't rely on interpreted CSS. I want sub-millisecond GUI. That's what I want.
Well, what you might also want is some API access, but as we're learning, every company now has decided that API access must cost by the byte or by the minute.
Microsoft billing 3 cents a minute to revisit tedious Teams meetings via API.
I like the sub-headline, one more reason to keep them short and sweet.
3 minutes for video recordings and 2.4 cents a minute for AI transcription. There's a lot of meetings where it would be handy to just be like, here's a link to where you gave us this instruction.
Please deposit a quarter
Yeah.
to view this. And Starfield, I still have not brought myself to play it. Are you still?
I haven't played it since our stream.
I'm not hyped for it anymore.
I'm
enjoying Baldur's Gate more. I've been excited to play it all week.
Like for a Bethesda game, it's almost like they took all the feedback, all the really negative feedback from Fallout 76, and they made exactly the game that people were asking for in Fallout 76. And for Bethesda, they've done a really amazing job. I think Todd Howard doesn't understand gaming, and that creates some of the issues in Starfield. I'm disappointed with the maps in Starfield. Like the map of the city just doesn't feel like the maps in Skyrim were actually like really nice. But yeah, Starfield sort of fun.
Well, Starfield is it's got a little bit of the console-itis, and one of the byproducts from that is that all the modern consoles run AMD. So they seem to have really worked hard to optimize for AMD and not Nvidia. So the modders have stepped in.
Starfield's missing Nvidia DLSS support has been added by a free mod. It's decently okay. I've tried it on a 3090, and it's definitely not as good as native.
Here's the thing about it, though. You know, you talk about Bethesda being scummy, and that release was very scummy. But this guy, he'll give you the DLSS, what was it, 2.5?
The 2 version, yeah.
If you want the latest one, you got to go to his Patreon and pay him.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen with Starfield when they do the creator mods, I'm sure.
I've also not tried the paid one, so maybe I have seen some video of it from somebody that's on his Patreon, but I have not tried the paid one.
And if you are a Windows user who does not go in for the whole Office Suite nonsense, but people send you those documents anyway, right? There's always been one way to at least read them, but not anymore.
Rip WordPad. Yeah, in the newest builds of Windows, there's no more WordPad.
I wonder if they'll reverse this, because people were really upset when they tried to remove Paint a few years ago.
No, I think they're probably going to just bundle Word, because they are bundling Outlook now. Remember, like their Windows Mail thing? They're basically just like, here, have Outlook. We don't care.
If you don't know, they're free alternatives. Is it OpenOffice or LibreOffice now?
LibreOffice, I think.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those that are abandoned too. Essentially, they're not getting as much love as they should.
Well, Spotify is apparently hitting some hard times. I saw they just gave me a pop-up ad as I got in the car today.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was like, come on, guys. I pay you.
Dark times.
But that's not the only way that they're trying to make money. They're also trying to make money by, of course, cutting out the creators.
Spotify is reportedly limiting ad payouts for white noise podcasters. Their reasoning, they say, if you're just listening to white noise, you're not engaging with the ads.
In fact, I'm going to be actively angry with the ads because I'm usually listening to white noise to go to sleep.
I wonder if are those visual ads? Because audio ads in the middle of your 12-hour rainstorm would be really unsettling. And this one passed me up completely. I was not aware of only Up. And apparently, I'll never get a chance to enjoy it now.
This summer's hottest streamer game appears to be gone for good.
I watched a few streams. It's literally you start at the bottom of a map and you go up. And you climb up like random items. And it's just really goofy, but it's really fun to watch.
Apparently some of those random items did not belong to the developer.
Some of them were NFTs, and apparently the people who owned the NFTs were very upset. And so he was like, I'm tired of being harassed, and he just removed the game from Steam.
Also memes, a lot of memes.
Yeah.
This is very analogous to the Flappy Bird story, remember that?
Yeah.
Although if this guy got a bunch of money from this, good for him. I hope he's able to retire in peace. But he said he's working on something new.
Yeah, I think that he was like, this was kind of just like for fun and for learning, and now I'm just going to take my money and retire into the sunset.
And if you are a digital creator, I feel bad for you because AI is going to destroy your world. But on the way there, you'll get some cool new tools.
Procreate's latest iPad app aim is to make animation easier for everyone. And Procreate is actually legit awesome.
It is great. I'm very excited for this. They just literally just released some demo stuff of it today. And it comes out in November. But it looks like After Effects, but you can draw directly in it using Procreate's tools, which I'm very excited for. I'll be having a lot of fun with this. I'll probably pay the $20 for it. But you pay $20 and you own it. What a novel concept, Adobe.
What's your first animation going to be?
Probably something basic like Hello World. The equivalent.
Well, hopefully the economy is ticking back up. I don't know if I trust that, but we haven't seen the same volume of catastrophic tech business stories. However, poor Roku is going to add to the list.
Roku is laying off 10% of its employees and will take up to a $65 million charge to remove streaming content. Remember when Roku was going to make its own shows? Pepperidge Farm remembers.
I don't remember that.
Well, they're not going to anymore.
Yeah.
And they're going to cut out a lot of the content they currently have. So if you're a Roku user, expect less.
In fact, I remember lamenting, like, why don't you just make a better device? And they're like, no, that's not the future.
The future isn't innovation. The future is, in fact, sort of the ring fencing of the tech world to kick out all of the other plebs, and you'll have to pay to play or pay to live in this new perfect world.
First renderings show new California city that the tech billionaires want to build.
Oh, it's so good. There's kayaking. There's fishing. There's like 5 houses. I don't know how that's going to work.
My question is, how does
in all 5 of those houses?
Yeah, my question is, how does the city supply itself? Like,
With these solar panels, obviously.
no, I'm thinking like basic amenities. Like, you expect people to truck in there every day?
Tell me that you don't know solar is powered without telling me that you don't know solar is powered by the sun, because at sunset, the solar panels should not be pointed away from the sun like that.
Well, they needed to make it obvious that it was a solar panel in the illustration.
It's a solar panel from the side, so it's just flat.
What is this, CSAM?
There's a lot of but.
Is The Verge hitting us with some CSAM here? This is just really more about how awful Google is. It's hard to disagree with.
The end of the Googleverse. The Verge subheadline is, for 2 decades, Google search was invisible force that determined the ebb and flow of content online. Now, for the first time, cultural relevance is in question. Yet another person notices that Google search is
Awful.
meh.
Full of AI generated garbage that's not useful when I'm trying to find out what acidity level my blueberries need.
Yeah, one almost wonders, does it have the Microsoft problem where middle managers are actively making it worse to make numbers on a spreadsheet go up to do with ads and engagement and whatever? Or is Google search stagnating and being overtaken by garbage and adversarial actors that are stuffing the results? It could be either. It could be a
It could
combination.
be both, yeah.
Well, they point out the high water mark was kind of when people figured out, wait a minute, this is important enough to game. Mm-hmm. And then we've been coasting on like 2 decades of that. And now we're at the point where it's all just people trying to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
It's so annoying. I hate it too when you're like looking up. Right now I'm looking for like contractor stuff. And like you get lists of contractors before you actually get a local contractor. And it's like, I don't want an aggregated list of people who are all over the state. I want someone who lives here. And like, I can't find their website because there's so many other list sites.
You know what might be a valid project is to try to do with domains what people did with ad blocking. To have user-generated curated lists of like, oh no, that's just AI garbage. And just filter that out of everything.
Gosh, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
What if Google gave you a place to plug in your own blacklist of domains? So when you search for something and you find a domain that's garbage, it's like, add this domain to the garbage list.
Well,
They
they're
will
not
never do that because advertising.
But a
They make
Chrome
too much money.
plugin could do that.
Yeah.
And you could have, just like the ads.
Although the Chrome plugin is so sandboxed that when you have zillions of those URLs, it runs really slow.
Well, maybe we'll run our we'll run our list somewhere else, and then we'll scan the page and pass them off. There's something there. But there's not something on torrentfreak.com. They are
The website's still
experiencing a
down.
really tough day. So once again, we will just have to read from the URL.
This was a TV museum that was on YouTube for 16 years, and Sony all of a sudden started issuing them takedowns, and their channel was going to be deleted because of old copies of Bewitched from the 1960s. Wow. And these recordings of Bewitched were with the original commercials. It was actually a rerun from the 80s. So there was 1980s commercials from the 1967, copy of Bewitched. And it had already been on YouTube for 16 years. And Sony's like, no, we got to take that down. That's ours.
So there's an Indian company that Sony has hired, and they are ravenous in terms of going after DMCA. They actually famously DMCA'd Sony themselves at one point. But this poor guy that curates this stuff, he's like, I've tried to get a human being to talk to, and it just doesn't exist. So we have to choose between either getting the strike or taking it all down, because we can't communicate with there is no negotiation here, which is how DMCA works, which is why it's one of the darkest things in our world.
Don't forget, last week we talked about how rights holders want to make those immediate as opposed to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And the right to repair, we usually know who the bad guys are in right to repair. They make it pretty obvious. But this one took me by surprise.
And Scientologists ask the federal government to restrict the right to repair. They don't want just anybody repairing their meters.
Or finding out that they are, in fact, fake.
I'm not super familiar with Scientology. What are these?
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah.
Oh, this is a rabbit hole you got to go down into. So when you become a Scientologist, they give you one of these devices here.
Right.
Or they don't give it to you. You go in.
You pay for it, I'm sure.
No. You don't get to keep one. They sit you down and you hold 2 leads. And they ask you just the most invasive questions about your life that you can imagine. And they read your meter, which is all fake.
Yeah.
And like that, they're like, okay, well, you're going to need to pay this much to undo all the horrible stuff. Scientology is great.
Wow.
What a racket.
We should send one of these to EEV blog.
Well, the rule is,
How do you get it? Yeah.
you're not allowed to take it apart. They got some sort of like terms of service, which I guess people have had these on eBay, but they really, really work hard to try to keep people from finding out what's inside because nothing is inside. And this is not necessarily a tech story, but just like, oh, how awful.
Mm-hmm.
If your life is probably not already great. If you're in this group, you probably put up with a lot of crap at work. You don't get paid a lot. Now you get paid less.
Walmart changes its starting pay structure for entry-level store workers because apparently there are a lot of entry-level store workers at this point.
It's almost like they have a retention problem.
So automotive and bakery gets paid more, but now everybody else gets paid the exact same amount. At least entry level. I guess you can like graduate up from that.
I worked at a different grocery chain.
Do you think the people who clean the bathrooms get paid the same? They probably farm that out though, probably, right?
Well, at the grocery store I worked at, that was one of the job duties if you were a bagger.
Oh, but
We
I'm
did
talking
like
about
hourly checks on
I'm
the
talking
bathroom.
about like
and
the
cleaned it.
overnight clean.
We cleaned it. It was like every hour someone would come through and like make sure there wasn't crap all over the place.
I'm sure we got some Walmart workers in the audience. Give us a engagement challenge. And it seems that the social media companies have figured out that because Australia and Canada made them remove the news, they were able to learn that people don't actually care about the news. So let's just get rid of it altogether.
Facebook is getting rid of the news tab in Europe. People post links to news on their own. So it turns out that Facebook didn't have to do that.
I'm actually not sure where news is on Facebook. Like, it's literally just a marketplace machine for me.
They say it's a tab.
The joke
I've never
is
seen
that
it.
there are 5 websites on the internet, and the links on those 5 websites consist of places that go to the other 4.
I don't see the number here, but I think they said something like 3% of people like actually change their habits. But most people were just like, yeah, I don't bother with that. So.
Don't know where it is.
And they'll always be tweets to me.
Yeah.
X's new terms of service insist that tweets are now posts.
Okay.
Sounds good.
You keep telling yourself that. Pat yourself on the back.
Retweeting is reposting. Twitter is X. I look at those like the Orwell directives. Like, no, never. I'll never believe it. Also, one of the big things here is with the scraping. They have changed their ideas like everybody else about how you can use their data.
Scraping or crawling is expressly prohibited under all circumstances without written permission.
Does that mean you can't use stuff on Twitter for AI generation? Is that what they're thinking?
No.
Couldn't use search engines even. Like Google couldn't index Twitter.
Oh, that's tragic because there are some funny tweets I'd like to save. I'm sorry, posts. X's. Should be called X's.
You have to pay the API fee for that.
Well, I guess it says that crawling is permissible within the robots.txt. So I guess searching is mostly okay. But scraping, no.
Well, it's a sad day. But we'll move on and we'll see you again in 2 more days.
Bye.